Hello everyone, and welcome to another Bitcoin crypto analysis video. Today we'll talk about a little bit cryptocurrency vocabulary, what kind of words you can find out there when you're researching about different coins. If you're new to this market, there are a bunch of words that you'll have to learn in order to understand what is going on and what you should invest in or not. So let's get started. The first word, blockchain. So for those of you who don't know what blockchain is, this is the big word out there in the media right now, but if you don't know what it is, it's a public ledger where all information regarding transactions are shared among computers that are using this blockchain. So here I have a little drawing of how it works a little bit. This is simplified, obviously. So let's say we have the first block. Then once it is verified, it gets added to the blockchain, and then we can move on to the second block. And then what the second block does, or once it gets verified, is also get added to the blockchain. And now the blockchain has two blocks. And all computers have to verify that if they're going to add a new block, everyone has to have the same, or most computers have to have the same first two blocks in their ledgers. Because if they don't, then it could mean that someone is trying to hack the blockchain. And then so on. Every time you add another block, all the previous blocks have to be the same for the majority of computers doing the work in the blockchain. So I know that it's a little bit complicated to understand, so we'll get into a little bit of the vocabulary to understand how the blockchain works. So the first big one is blocks. What are blocks? So blocks are a group of transactions to be mined, and blocks can have different sizes. Here, for example, from our previous blockchain example, we have block number 3, and this block can have a transaction from you to your friend or from a company to you, and it has their address, however much Bitcoin or any other currencies they are sending you or you're sending them, and it gets added with a bunch of different transactions and put together in a block. So there's a cool website here I would like to show you, which shows the average size of blocks throughout time. So you can see here we have June 2017 until May 2018, and here's been pretty up and down. You can see that the block size varies from half a megabyte to almost a megabyte or over a megabyte. And what this means is just how many transactions are getting added to one block. So the more transactions are getting added to one block, and more information that block has, the higher the size that block has. So next one, block height. You might hear this word a lot, and what it means is just the number of blocks that preceded the current block. So going back to our example of blockchain, we have here block 1. And the height of block 1 is actually 0 because there are no blocks preceding that or preceding block number 1. So moving on to block number 2, the height is 1. And for a previous example, block number 3 was height 2. And we can say that this blockchain here, this fictitious blockchain, has a height of 3, meaning that it has 4 blocks. And it's just saying that 3 blocks came before what the current block is. There's another website you can check. All of this information is going to be in the description. And here you can see what the current block height for Bitcoin is. Let me refresh this, see if so as you can see, it shows you how long ago this was, how many transactions were in that block, the total amount of Bitcoins contained in that block. And then it shows here who mined and the size of the block and the weight of the block. So let's go back to our presentation. Next vocabulary word, altcoins. What are altcoins? You may hear that a lot. Nowadays, pretty much altcoins are everything else apart from Bitcoin. So they're saying that Bitcoin is the main cryptocurrency and everything else are altcoins, just meaning alternative coins. So if you go to CoinMarketCap, this was a screenshot from today, and there are over 1,600 cryptocurrencies. I would say right now there are 1,614 altcoins, with Bitcoin being the other one to complete this number. So pretty straightforward. Let's move on to the next one. Address. You just heard me say address, but what does it mean? So an address, this is for Bitcoin. An address is an identifier of 26 to 35 alphanumeric characters, and they're supposed to be random. They are random in a way, and some Bitcoin addresses, or all Bitcoin addresses, start either with 1, 3, or BC1, followed then by 26 to 35 alphanumeric characters. Ethereum, on the other hand, all addresses start with 0x and then are followed by 40 alphanumeric characters. And there are a bunch of other blockchains out there that have their own set of rules for addresses. So if you're trying to get into cryptocurrency, maybe you want to own a little bit of Bitcoin, a little bit of Ethereum. First of all, you need to have an address, a Bitcoin address, Ethereum address. And then with that address, that's what you're going to use to send and receive transactions. It's almost the same as your bank account. So when you want to receive money, you give that person your bank account number and they'll send money to that bank account. The same thing with Bitcoin and Ethereum addresses. If you're trying to receive some Ethereum, you give them your public address and then they'll send coins to that address. Next one, mining. This one is a big one because a lot of people are talking about it. A few days ago, an article came out saying that nowadays about 0.5% of the world's energy is being used to mine Bitcoins and cryptocurrencies. But what does mining mean? So in the crypto world, it is referred to as the process by which transactions are put together in a block and verified by computers to then be added to the blockchain. And miners who accomplish this task get rewarded a fee for every block verified. So what it's saying, we talked about blocks. So who is putting together all those transactions in a block? So those are the miners. The miners, they get the transactions, they put it in a block, and then they try to verify that block. So when the miner that verifies that block first gets a fee in Bitcoin or whatever. So if you're verifying a Bitcoin block, you get rewarded Bitcoin. If you're verifying Ethereum block, you get rewarded Ethereum, and so on. Then next vocabulary, halving. This is not so common out there just because it's not a frequent event. But what halving means is when miners' rewards are divided by 2 or halved, and it has intention to control cryptocurrency inflation and just make it more difficult for the creation of new cryptocurrencies. So, for example, when Bitcoin was created in 2009, every miner that mined a block for Bitcoin, and by mining a block, I'm saying they verified that block, they put the transactions and they added it to the blockchain, that miner would get 50 Bitcoins. And then in 2012, that number went to 25 Bitcoins. 2016, that number went to 12.5. So you see, it's always halving. That's why it's called halving. And then 2020, that number is going to be decreased or divided by 2 again, and it's going to be 6.25. There's another website I would like to show you. And here there's a countdown for the next halving, the Bitcoin halving. So here it says that Bitcoin halves every 210,000 blocks. And then the current reward is 12.5, and it will decrease to 6.25, and this will happen in approximately 735 days and 36 days. So right now, the estimated date is May 28th, 2020. But obviously, let's say tomorrow everyone starts mining Bitcoin and a lot of people start using Bitcoin, this number may decrease. So it could be earlier than that because the fixed number is 210,000 blocks. So that's the number that we have to pay attention to. Going back to the presentation, next one is smart contract. What is a smart contract? So it is a protocol with the objective to facilitate the performance of a contract. So it's pretty straightforward. There's no hidden words. So that's why it's called a smart contract. And this is achieved through complicated coding that can verify if the conditions of a contract have been met so it can be executed. And Ethereum is known to be the first infrastructure blockchain to have smart contracts. So it's saying you can create this computerized contract and you can put conditions on it, and only if those conditions are met, the contract is going to go through. But this, once you put all the conditions and everything is set, then you don't have to do any work because the computer will check everything on its own if the conditions were met or not. So that's why it's called a smart contract. It's not like a regular contract where, for example, you sign a lease or something and then someone has to check if you're paying or not. Here, everything is done by the computer. You just have to buy the contract. And POW, POS, what is it? What is it for? So POW is proof of work and POS is proof of stake. And what they are scripting algorithms put in place to prevent attacks on different blockchains and have the objective to decide which block is to be added to the blockchain. So as we were talking about Bitcoin, it uses proof of work, and miners, they have to show that they have done the work to mine the block, meaning that they have to show they have done the work to verify transactions and figure out that block's hash rate. This will be talked about in another video, but computers are doing solving mathematical problems, difficult mathematical problems, to figure out what the new block is. And once the first miner does that, all the other miners have to verify that, and then it gets added to the blockchain. This is proof of work. So someone did the work and all miners verify if that work has been done, and then it gets added to the blockchain. Proof of stake, on the other hand, miners with a high stake on that coin can decide about the next block and who can add it to the blockchain. So right now Ethereum and Bitcoin use proof of work, but Ethereum is thinking about moving into proof of stake, because proof of stake is pretty much, if someone owns a lot of Ethereum, let's say 10% of Ethereum are owned by one person or one miner, that miner gets to decide who can add the next block to the blockchain and verify that block. So it doesn't require computers to be calculating hard mathematical problems or solving hard mathematical problems. The good side of proof of stake is that it doesn't have any energy costs. That I just mentioned, this year 0.5% of the world's energy is being used to mine, or meaning that they're using proof of work or some other variation of that. While proof of stake, you don't need computers running to solve these problems and thus paying for energy. You just have one person decide and it gets done, and there's no cost to that. So it saves a lot of money regarding to energy and those costs. But some people are afraid of proof of stake because if someone has a huge stake in a coin, so it has a lot of coins, let's say someone has 55% of a certain coin, they can manipulate the way they want it and have the monopoly over it. So there are other ways you can fix that problem, but that's not the topic of this video. Let me know in the comments what other vocabulary words you'd like to know the meaning. If this video was helpful, check out my other videos. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.